Hi, I'm Mark Sher. I'm the CEO and founder of Encompass Life and the host of the Wellness Revolution podcast. And today we have Irina Krylova on a call. And Share company is called XLSA. And she is about testing water to make sure we have clean drinking waters. And specifically, what she's testing waters for is endocrine disruptors, because the endocrine system is a wonderful, wonderful tool where it helps us. Let's see. One of the things about the endocrine system is, like the thymus, it produces the chemicals that increases white blood cell production and white blood cell maturity that affects our endocrine, that affects our immune system. And it also, the endocrine system produces hormones we recognize as feelings. So sometimes if the endocrine system is having some really interesting disruptors in it, you may get stuck in the production of fear, in the fear hormone, or maybe in doubt or something. So it affects us in all kinds of ways. And Arena is here to talk about how she's testing for it. Arena, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Nice to meet you. And my name is Irina, and I am one of the co-founders of the small company, which is called XLSA, which is based at Berkeley Ingenuity Hub at the Bakar Labs. And our purpose is to devise assays to test for endocrine disruptors in water and eventually in bodies. And those disruptors would be coming from our environment, disrupting our endocrine system. And as Mark noted, endocrine system is the one which keeps us together, it keeps us alive, it keeps us working smoothly. And the main basis of endocrine systems is certain proteins that we use as a mechanistic tool to run our assays. So when Mark said your body produces hormones, and you think, okay, what are my hormones? And some hormones that come to mind are sex hormones, for example, such as androgens and estrogens. And we using the proteins that in cell capture those hormones to assure the biological response to those hormones. So those proteins belong to a large family, about 50 members, and they actually are the orchestrators of your immune system, and not only of immune system, but also of development. And this is why endocrine disrupting chemicals can affect development in a very big way. They can affect how baby develops in the womb. They can affect whether the baby, when grown up, will have PCOS or not, whether the baby will be obese or lean. And there is a multitude of factors that are affected by the endocrine disruptors. And there has been fairly recent realization that we live in the sea of chemicals. I'm actually also teaching evolutionary medicine class at Berkeley this spring. And the major theme of the class is how we are different from the environment in which humanity has evolved. The humanity has been evolving for, the anatomically modern humans are about 300,000 years old. And only in the past 200 years, we are exposed to the kind of chemicals that we've never experienced in our evolutionary past.
Right.
And that's a big problem.
Yeah. So you're checking in drinking water. And
Yeah.
and our drinking water, I mean, it's public, comes from a lot of drinking water comes from the public municipality, and it's being treated and all those things. So how are the chemicals, these endocrine disruptors, getting into the drinking water supply?
There are multiple ways how chemicals in general and endocrine disruptors in particular get in drinking water supply. There are many chemicals that have ability to bind to those proteins that I mentioned that capture and respond to the hormones. And those proteins are not like 100% selective. They can also capture certain exogenous chemicals or xenochemicals, which do not belong to our body. So those are synthesized by humans. They are part of the plastic. So any plastic, you can make a plastic without using so-called plastifiers. And all plastifiers are endocrine disruptor. You might be familiar with bisphenol A, but there's a whole series of bisphenols, and A is just the first one. But don't be fooled if you buy something bisphenol A free, it will have another plastifier. But the most widespread chemicals, and they are also endocrine disruptors those days, are PFAS chemicals.
Right.
And finally, the government and EPA responded. We will have some limits to as much PFAS we can have in our environment and drinking water. So this we can only test by chemical means. And the endocrine disruptors that are ubiquitous, they come from pesticides, they come from herbicides, they come from plastifiers, they come from many chemicals, you name it. Look around and you will see you surrounded with chemicals. The cosmetics, the home care products, all of them have endocrine disruptors.
Lotions, all even birth control.
Birth control pill, yeah, people take it, and I don't have the numbers on the top of my head, but you can think about any one of them knows somebody who takes pill.
Right.
Right.
And even
Right.
even like birth control came up in the 60s, I guess. So now you have maybe three generations who've been on birth control.
Yes, and all, it's transformed in our body, but it's not transformed into atoms. It transformed into molecules which still have endocrine actions. And then it goes into the environment through the sewage. And
Right.
the sewage is released in the water body.
Right.
And depending where you live, the sewage will be released either in a lake or in the river, on a bay, or in the ocean.
Right.
And it goes back to water supply. Sorry, I'm still recovering
Yeah,
from my
gotcha.
tour. So, and it's inevitable, it's ubiquitous, and it's everywhere, and it's the time to act. As you probably know by the work of Shanna Swan, that the sperm count has dropped currently over
Yep.
52% just in under 5 decades.
Right.
And it keeps dropping down by 2.6% a year. And it's not hard to extrapolate. Like 50 years from now, are we being able to reproduce ourselves?
Right.
It's a big question. I mean, and it is kind of strange question to raise because we have been concerned mostly about a number of humans on Earth and the burden of humans on Earth and the burden of humans on all the other life on Earth. But the humans are killing ourselves as well.
Right.
Humanity, by creating all those chemicals, causes
So
huge problems.
so you're gonna be start testing drinking water, and I assume you also test bottled water as well, right?
Yes, water is water, but
Water is
the
water.
bottled water, yeah, bottled water it can be actually coming from the tap.
Right. Right. So are there, as you're starting to test all this stuff, are you finding it everywhere?
Yes. PFAS, for example, PFAS are the chemicals, and the structure of those chemicals, if you think about your body, like we are all made of cells, right? And
Right.
every cell is enclosed into the membrane, and the membrane is made of certain kind of lipids, which are very, very similar to PFAS for some of the PFAS species. So those PFAS are even making some of our cells because they mimic our own lipids. And we're just ubiquitous everywhere, found in polar bear, found in North Pole, anywhere you look. There hasn't been a place on Earth where you couldn't find PFAS chemicals.
Right.
And every single person tested has it. But PFAS is like a tip of the iceberg. We have mounds of different kind of endocrine disruptors, which we
Right.
can actually test.
Yeah, you remember, I remember when Teflon came out and what a big deal and how much Teflon affected the endocrine system as well. Oh, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, which was all marketing.
Well, Teflon is a PFAS.
Right.
One of the,
That's why I brought it
yeah,
up.
yeah, one of the species, but we use it in firefighter foam. Think about wildfires, like in California, we have those increasingly common, not only in California, right?
Hmm.
It increases everywhere, and foam is made of PFAS.
Hmm.
So many things are being replaced now that we understood the danger, but it will take very, very long time
Gotcha.
to get rid
So,
of what we use.
what's the what's the solution for getting it out of the drinking water? Is there filtration systems available? Is there a way to treat it? Is there a way to get the stuff out?
Well, I personally think there are fairly simple techniques that you can use to get rid of majority of endocrine disruptors. And this is because those endocrine disrupting chemicals are hydrophobic. So they don't really mix with water very well. And you can, and this is the reason we also, many of them are forever chemicals, because once we get into the body, they get stored in our fat. And we carry a lot of fat, and our fat is very static part of our body. It's not easily exchanged. So we always carry those chemicals in us, in our fat. But because those chemicals are hydrophobic, we can filter them through filters that remove hydrophobic compounds. And that would include just the activated charcoal filter, such as, I think Brita filter is okay. It just needs to be replaced properly. Once the filter is saturated, it cannot take anymore, so you have to
Gotcha.
replace it. And when I was reading and watching, looking for the information, how to remove them, many sources suggest reverse osmosis, and I'm not sure about that.
Mm.
Because I visited, for example, Valley Water drinking water plant. This one is actually producing drinking water quality from sewage,
From what?
from sewage water.
Ah, oh yeah,
So
right,
we just take gray water, they
right,
clean it up to make it like first pass clean, and then it goes through the reverse osmosis. And it's amazing you have the whole
right.
warehouse of the reverse osmosis unit. But the pressure is the pressure which you need to develop to make reverse osmosis efficient is unachievable in household level. So it's like 45,000 horsepower
Hmm.
pressure. And
Hmm.
we have this huge, like humongous pumps, like humongous, I can show it, it's very large, to power those reverse osmosis unit. And for what I understand, and I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty positive that reverse osmosis is probably, it can be sold to you as such, as a cure-all, right? But the chances it will remove, it would have the pressure to remove the,
Gotcha. So you got a lot of
the
passion around what
chemicals.
you have a lot of passion around what you're doing here.
Well, I
Where
am.
where did you get the passion from?
Well, I'm first of all, I'm human, right? And secondly, I'm a scientist. And thirdly, I'm a teacher. So I have a lot of students. And I've had thousands of students by now. and I want them to be informed citizens. And I think the big problem, the citizenry is not informed enough sufficiently.
Hmm.
Many do not use scientific approach, so they would easily believe anything we're told or seen, and they need to be able to use a scientific method. You
Hmm.
know, just analyze, read, look into data, look into the primary data, and
Bless
uh,
you.
mm, pass it through your brain, you know, prepare your brain to be able to take the data, to analyze the data, and to draw conclusions which are relevant to your life and
Hmm.
relevant to life of other people. And that is one problem because we do not see it implemented widely enough. This kind of scientific thinking, a scientific approach.
Hmm.
And like I said, just one example of the sperm count should alert anybody and everybody.
Right.
And yeah, with this, like half of the sperm count compared to 50 years ago,
Yeah.
dropping down 2.6% every year. And like I'm teaching anatomy, okay?
Hmm.
So what I tell students, you think 20 million sperm per meal is a lot, but that's an infertility level.
Right.
It's a level of infertility. So in evolution has molded our species for hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
And now we're just toying with our biology, we're toying with our biochemistry. We're eating something which has not been evolutionary
Right.
human. We're eating all this processed food. We're eating, what about fructose syrup? This country is completely um, sick in a way because so many people have diabetes.
Hmm.
So many people have pre-diabetes. Most this
Thyroid issues. I mean, pancreas issues, diabetes. I mean, all
Yeah,
that.
thyroid is another kind of receptors which we study, which we use for mechanistic assessment of the endocrine disruptors. So thyroid receptor will be in our toolbox, hopefully, once we have enough funding and once we have, you know, the capacity. But we do have expertise. The company is a spin-off UCSF lab.
Hmm.
So the lab, I was a postdoc in this lab of Fred Sheffley, who is a co-founder, like another co-founder, and he's director of scientific operations.
Bless you.
Yeah, it was very bad virus. I hate viruses.
Hmm.
We don't know what to do with them yet.
Right.
So,
So how old is your company? How long have you been
so
doing this?
over 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, and we have had funding from National Olympic Committee because our other line of work, we have an assay to test testosterone doping in athletes.
Hmm.
And so we have developed, we have IP for that, like potential IP, which
Okay.
is very unique to measure testosterone level in a small
Right.
concentration. We can, so the problem with doping is if you dope testosterone, right?
Right.
And you already have testosterone in your body. So how you can tell which one was there and which one is new? And that's the whole thing around which the female athletes gender verification is based, right? We have this 10 nanogram per deciliter of testosterone or more or less, and it defines whether or not you can compete for Olympics. That's ridiculous because men would have 100 times more.
Right.
But our technique allows to measure in females in very low levels, but also we have ability to distinguish endogenous from exogenous testosterone.
Wow.
So with the technique which has been developed in the company. So we can, and you know, we don't, we're not thinking of the big market, but we are very concerned about amateur athletes because those boys in high school and sometimes girls, many of them take dope,
Right.
and we know about that, right? So, but that can be very consequential later in life. This can ruin your liver
Right.
mostly, but it can also cause a lot of reproductive problems. So there's a lot of issues associated
Mental,
with
a lot of
dope.
mental problems too.
Yes, yeah. Well,
Oh,
mental is,
mhm.
it's always there. It's always there.
Right. Right.
You can never discount it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So who who are your customers?
We collaborating with the water resource boards in
Mm-hmm.
California,
Mm-hmm.
California water resource boards. The specifics of our assay, which makes it unique, is that we have capacity to test very cheaply, very, very cheaply, and in a very, very large scale with the very high throughput.
Huh.
So let's say to test for PFAS or whatever, you would use chemical technique. You have to use mass spectrometer. You have to have extremely highly trained personnel, which is able to analyze and test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we use mechanistical approach. We use those same proteins that react to this chemical in the body
Mm-hmm.
or another chemical which mimics the actual hormone. So in those proteins, we engineer cell lines with those proteins, and we use high throughput microscopy. So we use actually microscope. And
Hmm.
if you didn't know, you probably heard of all the sequencing revolution. I don't know if you send your DNA sample or any of
Mm-hmm.
your, people send their DNA. It's done by microscopy. It's done using the microscope. It's the microscope which reads your sequence.
Huh.
And we're using the same approach to read the changes in the cell phenotype. So phenotype is what we can observe. Okay? So we can read it and we can quantify it and we can have a conclusion whether or not the receptor was activated. So it's a mechanistic assay. If receptor is activated, when there is a cognate compound,
Oh,
which
it's
either normal hormone or mimicking hormone.
gotcha. So if you're using the microscope to check for this stuff, does it have to be a human analyzing it, or can you use AI, or can be an automated sequence to do so?
Well, who doesn't use AI those days? I
Right.
have it right here in front of me for all,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, we use all the intelligence available,
Gotcha.
all the data available. So we're building database.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal is to not to have a limit to how scalable we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we have very high throughput technique. EPA only tests about 2,000 people a year for endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Hmm.
So with our technique, it would be first pass test. Any positive will be an alarm. And once you have this positive, it can you look into more detail what specific chemical causes this biological response. But if there's no anything which would bind to this particular protein, there's no biological response. There's nothing to worry about, right? So we screen it, we screen hundreds of thousands, we get hundreds which are suspect, and we can zoom in, and then we can probably use additional chemistry techniques, such as
Gotcha.
spec that will be able to ID every single compound.
Fascinating. That's really cool what you're doing.
Yeah, and the price is very, very affordable. It's like 100 times less than any of the competitors. And I checked the pitch book, the companies we list as our competitors, we're not even in the same area. We're doing something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's a new market, which is always a challenge, but it's also a possibility, an opportunity.
Gotcha. Awesome, Irina. Um, how do people get in touch with you?
There's a website which is called XLSA.com.
And that's XCELLASSAY
Right.
.com.
So X is just X.
Right.
And then cell, like cell,
Mm-hmm. And
like
one more
the
side.
unit of organism. And then assay, all in one word, XLSA, all in one word.com.
Awesome. And end the I always end the podcast with one question. And the question is, what do you love about life?
What do I love about life? I think, well, I know when anybody say life, they can ask like your life, and I'm just gonna say life in general on Earth.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like to say capital L life, big L life.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm fascinating. Like every day, I'm fascinated with every new things which we discover.
Yeah,
I mean, this is like what drives me. I teach those classes, but it's not like I have read lectures. I have even for anatomy, which is kind of like anatomy, give me a break, right? I'm going into PubMed. There's so many new things that we
yeah,
discover. It's amazing.
yeah,
We are blessed to live in the age of amazing discoveries. And I would say majority of what we see new is life,
yeah,
metabolism, you know, um, performance, longevity, cancer, anything you might touch in your podcast. It's all life, right? It's all different facets of life. And for us, to live healthy, like say, very basic, right? Live
mm-hmm.
healthy. We need to know so much. We need to understand so much. And we need to be able to think as a scientist, every single one of us,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a big problem when people cannot do that.
Yeah. Critical thinking skills, logic. Not what to think, but how to think. And
Yes, yes.
we've been missing that in our education. Everybody has been programmed to think a certain way rather than, hey, here's how to gather information and come up with your own analysis.
Yeah, and this is what I like about this class I'm about to start teaching is that in medicine, you know, we all have different doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you wish your doctor knew more. We had
Mm-hmm.
different approaches. So, but the thing is, we're lacking, the medical education is lacking um, basic medicine. So the basic medicine is actually evolutionary medicine.
Mm-hmm.
We don't teach it in medical school.
Basic medicine and nutrition,
Yeah,
food is the best medicine is food.
exactly. Yes, we cannot. I mean, if food is number one to start
Right.
with.
Clean
Yeah.
food, clean water.
Yeah, yeah, we are what we eat, and if we eat endocrine disruptors, where we go.
Mm-hmm.
We have all kind of issues. We have precocious puberty, you name it.
Right. And then once our body chemistry off, then here's a drug to adjust the chemistry back or block the effects of those drugs that you're from eating poison. And now you're chasing wellness in a pill, which sucks, man. Terrible.
Well, people like it because it's easy,
Right.
but this is not.
But they're giving up their own control of their own life, their own self mastery.
Yes, yeah. So people should, like your mom said, you have to work for to get anything,
Right.
right?
Right.
You can just swallow a pill and become healthy.
Oh,
You need to exercise a minimum at least to stay alive.
right.
If you don't want to do it, well, go to retirement home and see what's going to happen to you
Yeah.
and see if you like it. And if you
Right.
don't start working on that now.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
sooner the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Irina, thank you so much for being on the show. And I love your passion for what you're doing. And I hope everything you continue to grow and wake up a bunch more people with what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Mark, for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope your audience can learn a bit and they can go on site and learn more about the company. And
Yes.
my email, I can go through Berkeley email and I can
Yeah,
respond.
awesome. Thank you very much.